Tourette's effects to play for newbies, indies, as well as low budgeters. Guys, in honor of Spider-Man Homecoming releasing in theaters, and because I've been bombarded with requests for it, we are finally tackling one of this show's most highly requested effects, the Spider-Man web shooter effect. Roll out the request box. So yeah, a whole bunch of you want to see a Spider-Man web shooter effect. Cool. Now I've seen two ways to do this on YouTube. The first is the more difficult way, involving a 3D model and a 3D simulated web and animating that to come from your hand off into another object. But that would be quite difficult to do since Hitfilm Express doesn't offer a 3D engine. The second way I've seen is where people animate a JPEG image of a web to fire from a web shooter off screen. And while that could work, But today, a third way shall emerge. Thanks to Production Crate, who, I swear guys, are breaking barriers when it comes to what type of stock footage you can find on the internet. I mean, where have you heard of Spider-Man web shooting stock footage? Now they haven't only created webs just firing from a web shooter, they've also created those same webs attaching themselves to objects or walls, as well as full-fledged webs attaching themselves to walls or people or whatever you want really. So I'm not gonna lie guys, my job is made really easy thanks to that stock footage. So as always, I've linked the website down below in the description, so just click show more and the link to the website will appear, as well as the link to their YouTube channel, and of course the link to all the Spider-Man web assets. I've also linked a few of their powder hits down in the description, since we're also going to be using that in the tutorial. Speaking of that legendary tutorial, let's get to it right now. Hitfilm Express, comp set up, footage loaded, you know what's up. In the media panel, I've imported a bunch of the different web variations that are available on Production Crate, as well as some powder hits. Links all in the description. For this shot, the first thing I'm going to do is navigate to the firing point. Right over here. Now I'll drag in a web firing clip. There are multiple variations of these available on the site at all the different angles, so pick one that you like and then shoot your footage accordingly. The one that I chose and shot my footage around was Web Blast at Cam 1. So I'll drag that into my timeline and place it relatively at the right position. I say relatively because my hand moves away soon after that, yet the web keeps spraying from the same location. So to fix that, and since I want a short burst of web, all we need to do is speed it up. So let's right click the web clip, then select speed/duration. Here you gotta just play with the numbers until it suits your shot. You wanna change the speed so that the web stops spraying when you pull your hand back. For preference sake, I'm going to choose to trim the first few frames off, cutting out the initial startup, since I want it to be immediate, but this is optional. Next, we have to track the web to our shooter prop. Now since this clip only lasts a couple of frames, I'm going to do it manually, but if yours lasts longer, then feel free to motion track your shot. Before we start animating, let's scale it up a bit, maybe 30%, just so we have some room to play with. Let's turn on keyframing for our web's position at the start of the clip, then move it into place. We'll then advance frame by frame and adjust it as we go along until the end of the web clip. If you begin to see the edges of your web clip since you're adjusting its position, just adjust the scale once more and recheck the rest of your keyframes. Okay, next up, color correction. I'll drop 3 effects onto my web clip: the color temperature effect, the brightness and contrast effect, as well as the lens blur effect. Okay, let's turn all of those off and focus on the color temperature controls. Here you're going to want to subtly adjust it either left for a warmer tone or right for a cooler look so that it matches the white balance of your shot. For my shot, I'll slightly pull the slider left and warm it up a tiny bit. It's subtle and you can't really see it unless you look really closely, but it makes a big difference. In the brightness and contrast controls, I'm just going to dim the brightness a little as well as pump up the contrast a bit. Finally, in the lens blur settings, let's set that to 2 so it's not too sharp and matches with the rest of our footage. Now one more thing I want to do is drag in one of these powder hits from Production Crate into the timeline and place it at the exact point where my web actually fires from the shooter. Now this is just to sell the impact of the web shooter more, and you can actually see, if you look really closely, a bit of a powder burst happening in the actual film. But this powder hit is brown and definitely not going to work for our shot. So to fix that, let's head to the effects panel, search for the tint effect and then drop it onto our powder hit. Here I'm just going to leave the tint amount at a relatively high number just to make it a bit more white or grey, or not brown basically. We can then scale and position it over our web shooter, and then as a final step drop the opacity to about 50%. The shot of the web attaching itself to the target was pretty simple as well. All I did was bring in another of the web assets, place it on the target, and then, for some further adjusting, made it 3D and played a bit with the rotation controls until I had it looking all nice. Then, because the light conditions hadn't changed and because I'm lazy, I just copied the color corrections we made from the previous web asset and pasted it right onto the new one. Easy as pie. All this has to do now is get bit by a spider, steal Captain America's shield, as well as have your uncle walk down the street at night and organize for someone to run up to him and... What? We can't say that. Oh. Okay. Anyway, do all of that and you should end up with something that looks a bit like this. Ah, Spider-Man. One of my top 3 superheroes. That's a Reds Effects fact for you right there. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. Definitely check out productioncrate.com who have sponsored this video for some really cool royalty-free stock footage, music, sound effects. Speaking of sound effects, all the web sounds you heard in the opening sketch, like the web shooter firing itself or the webs attaching themselves to various objects, all come from productioncrate.com as well, and they're all royalty free. So the link for that is also in the description down below. Let's go get those and use them because they're cool. Yeah. As always, you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter right over there or in the description down below for some updates about the show, my life, behind the scenes, polls, voting polls. There's a whole bunch of stuff, guys. Just follow me down below. You won't regret it. But that's it for this episode. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. Stay safe. Enjoy the rest of your day. And I'll be leaving now. Wrong way, just click off the video.